And then the last part of it is we kind of have a settling down, and we'll do a little meditation. But after you've been here for a while in this room, you'll have just calmed down and you'll be settled and you'll be just present, and then we lead into a lovely meditation. So that's kind of the three parts of it. I think we have everybody in. Do we, Nirvana? Do you want to commute? That's my gorgeous daughter, Nirvana, down there. She was here the last time. Oh, maybe a couple more. So, do you know what? Maybe we'll wait a couple more minutes for everyone to come and I'll take us through. So I was just talking about the Indian-Irish connection. I might as well start with that. And that's Manchán Magan's new book, out in November. He was here in the centre a while back. I don't know if you guys know him. But what's really interesting is the crossover in cultures. And I was, lucky enough to marry into an Indian family. It was my husband here, Anirban. And Anirban actually means the flame that never goes out. Oh. So how appropriate is that on a day like today, right? And Nirvani is my daughter in the back, which is a Buddhist name. Nirvani is enlightenment. So I'm very lucky to be surrounded by them. But what Manchán has highlighted here, resonances between the Irish and Indian cultures, is something that I've been journeying with a while myself as a meditation teacher. Sometimes you have to go the whole way to India to come back around to Ireland, to your own culture, to realise the depth of what you have. And actually the ancient Irish were meditating in the caves and the cairns, 3,000 years ago in Ireland. And the Gaeilge, the Irish language, is as ancient as Indian Sanskrit. And he has a whole book written, and done a lot of research, Manchán, about the links between the languages. So, that's really interesting. And then there's actually a story that is almost the same as Bríg and the cloak. So a lot of people are familiar with St. Brigid's cloak and how she spread it out wide. And there's a very, very similar story taken from the Indian texts, the Maharbhaja. Maharbhaja, yeah, I'm not great in the pronunciations. And it's about a goddess and her sari. And they're trying to take away her sari, but it keeps going out further and further and further, that generous spirit. So I think that's an incredible connection, and he's done amazing research. So I always like to bring that into what I do, and it's why I call my meditation Manatra meditation. So it's a mantra meditation, but with Mana, the feminine energy of Ireland, coming in. So a couple more people still coming, so I'll wait a moment for the scale. Come on in, Fáilte. So yeah, there is crossovers between Goddess Bríg and St. Bridget. There was a Bridget's Cross downstairs actually, and many people are familiar with the St. Bridget's Cross. It might be something that you did as a child, or it might be something that you've seen online. And what's really interesting about the Bridget's Cross is it's called a cross because it was kind of co-opted by Christianity within Ireland. But actually what they now believe is that the 4 points of it are actually the 4 Celtic fire festivals, which I'm lucky enough to do collaboration here with the Irish Cultural Centre and celebrate, and many of you have been before. So we have Samhain, with the dark part of the year, we have now, which is Imbolc, then we have Bealtaine, which is May, and the final one is Lunasa. Because as you know, the cross is not a Christian cross, as you can tell, but it was co-opted, and kind of as Christianity spread from Ireland, they did kind of take a lot of the stories and the customs and the traditions and kind of use them to explain Christianity. So that's why you have this kind of it's kind of fite fuha interwoven St. Bridget with the Goddess Brígid. So that's the cross. And as I was saying before about the cloak, that's also, we can go back into ancient mythology for that as well. And then the Brath Bríg is the other one many people have heard of, which is leaving out this piece of cloth at night, and maybe many of you did that the day before yesterday. So that's kind of giving you the links. There's definitely links there. And if you think we've everyone in, you could close that door. Do you think? Yeah. Thank you, darling. Yeah.
Can I ask you about your jewellery?
Yeah, so with the tree is just representing growth, so we're here at the start of spring, because ultimately Imbolc means in the belly, and like I was saying, I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, because what I've done as a writer, as a meditation teacher, is I go to the ancient sites, and then when you go into the ancient Irish texts, there's very little sometimes on the goddesses. And this is not a coincidence. If you're a patriarchal Christian faith, you don't really want women to have strong feminine energy and divine feminine energy to turn to, right? So you will find that the monks have not written a terrible lot about a lot of the goddesses. You have a bit of Morrigan, who we celebrated back in Samhain. I've just realised that I have a mic with me today, which I'm not using. I don't know if it was needed, is it? Sorry, yeah, they mic me up today. I don't know if that's any better, or it makes any difference. So, sorry, lost my track there. So,
Jewellery, I was asking you.
yes, you were asking me, Sarah in the throat. So that's just really to represent, I was saying it's the Imbolc, it means in the belly, it's ancient Irish. But what I wanted to do was go back into the ancient Irish texts. I speak Gaeilge, but I'm not a Gaeilgeoir. I didn't grow up with Irish. And find out what's in there, and then try to reimagine what might have been actually said about Brigid and these goddesses, culturally and locally. And that's where my stories come from. Because as I say, if you just go and translate the text, it can be quite limiting. And you know, I remember my daughter who had said to me one time, why do all the Irish goddesses come to a terrible end? I don't want her to, Boann, who is meant to be Brigid's mother, dies down a well. You know, there's numerous other stories, Morrigan, all of that. And so again, you have to wonder through the prism of the male gaze about these goddesses. So I'll go on into my story in a bit, and you'll see I like to reimagine what the story of Brigid might have really been. All that's actually contained in the ancient Irish texts about her is that she was the High One, Brigid, and that she was honoured by poets, by smiths, by healers. When you actually just go back in, there's very little honour. And then, as I say, a lot of traditions have grown up over many, many years within Ireland. So to go back to what I was saying was Imbolc means in the belly. And, you know, this idea of fire in the belly, Brigid is very, very much that flame that we could keep lit inside ourselves. And also you have this time of year where you have, I'm from a farm where the lambs are coming, and so you start to have, spring is a time of birth. And what's so wonderful is I have the Cailleach here, and you'll hear about the story. We celebrated her, the Irish goddess, at winter solstice. And now what we have is that she has to give over the land to Brigid. There's a couple of places down the front if you're, oh, just on there, Grant. She has to give over. I will ask you now, everyone, to just turn your phone on silent or off if you can, because it's easy to forget, and then once we get into the story, the meditation, it's not good if it goes off. So, yeah, so that's kind of, I said, I don't want to overwhelm you with it, but that's where the Imbolc comes from. It's ancient Irish, and it's this sense that we're coming out of the winter. And I think it's so wonderful that our ancestors had these celebrations, the Celtic wheel, as you go round the year. So it's not just all about Christmas, there's one big celebration, then there's nothing, right? That we are in tune with the land, we're in sync with the land. And as soon as a little bit of a bud starts to come through, as soon as the snowdrop, as soon as anything is coming through, we're actually starting to really acknowledge that. And so we're leaning into the joy of spring. And I grew up on a farm in County Westmeath, very near Ishnaw. And if you've ever been on a farm, you do notice the seasons, you really do. You will notice all the tiny changes. Sometimes in big cities, we don't notice it as much because some of the things that are planted are not based on our natural seasons. You know, they're different from other countries. So that's kind of the essence of it. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start off with a short little piece that I've wrote. It's ultimately about how Brigid, you'll find out about Brigid in that she needs to let her flame out, and she needs to be able to create, and this is like the spirit of creativity. But sometimes we keep things in and we don't use our voice and we don't let things out. And so, you know, we're kind of coming out of the hibernation of winter, and maybe it's been nice to just let things settle over the winter and be in the womb of winter. But now perhaps it's time for a change, and it's maybe time to let our voices out and to say something. So that's the essence of this first story, and it's an original piece by myself. The hearth rug. The white marquee was up. its flapping edges finally still after wild Irish weather. Inside, long tables lay ready for the mingling of east and west. Mehendi meets rock the boat. "You're needed," my sister-in-law said. Her concerned gaze fueled my frustration. At such a shock for her. My older sister's words cajoled me down the dark hallway, grating at my resolve. I rolled my eyes and pushed open the heavy library door. She sat by the unlit fireplace, her small body dwarfed by the large Chesterfield. Old cabinets of books and ornate objects packed in above a huge hearth rug. I sunk my bare feet into its cosy comfort, my eyes focusing on its intricate stitching. "Well," she said, smiling weakly, "good thing I remembered to put out the Child of Prague before we left. Sure, isn't it a lovely bright morning?" "Must be more than a pishog, I suppose." I tried to laugh. "What happened then?" she whispered. "To you? Your friend said you were attacked by a man at night." Outwardly, I fixed my face. Inwardly, my stomach flipped. "Yes, I was." She talked of an older cousin. Hadn't the same happened to her? And the shock of it for her mother. Her voice faded into a distant hum. So she had to get professional help. I floated above the drawing room as the Colleen Ma and the bad bitch battled it out in my mind. Why am I the one assuring her always? And on my wedding day, whisht, just play your role, you know how it goes. "I wish I'd known," she continued. "No, you don't," my inner voice spat. "You couldn't have coped." I wanted to run away, become Goddess Macha as swift as the wind. There had been no space for tears in her presence. No room for teenage confessions of boys or work woes. She already carried enough, gone in doubt. Consumed by the care for himself, my sister's eating and working in the washing. Sure, who could add to her load? "I'm worried about you," she pressed, her eyes sad. I focused on the soles of my feet, on the soft rug. I'd find no soothness here, despite the lush luxury. Yet, I was thick-skinned as a grapefruit. It wasn't her fault. Fear had made her generation mute. Why wring that bitter fruit? "We don't need to talk about it today, Mum," I convinced. My eyes found a framed poster from the war. Keep calm and carry on. Her mantra, Kinsha. For sure. Was it now mine too? Feck it. My self-reliance had been born crying into the wind and confiding in the blue farm cat. "Mum, there's a lot to do." I stood up. In my rush to escape, I tripped over the heavy hearth rug, stumbling forward. She gasped, "Are you okay?" My cheeks flushed, but my armour was still intact. Not even a trickle of a tear. A warrior woman, like my ancient ancestors. And I thought, sweep it all under that rug. So we have the word down here, corja in Irish, which means friends, and I always want you to be able to share with each other and have a good chat. So after that, let's see how that's sitting with you all. Say sláinte, right? Say hello to your neighbour. Introduce yourself and see how that story has sat with you. And I'll bring you back in 5 or so minutes for the next part.
Thank you.